Hello, this is Myra Elaine on the Buying Space channel. Today I'm doing an unenveloping, and this unenveloping is from Amazon. And I hardly ever do this. I hardly ever unenvelope or unbox anything from Amazon. I have a few things, but not all my things. So here we go. Uh-oh. This package, the item in the package and its packaging is taking up the entire envelope. Okay, here we go. Okay, glad I didn't cut it. Now, near Pi Day this year, 2025, there is a Jewish holiday. Free $10 off at judicaplace.com. And there's my coupon code. So I'm going to remove that because I don't know if that's a code that can only be used once. Let me see if I can hide this. This is the manufacturer, the company that makes this item. I'm going to hide the code though. All right. This is Hanan. And Hanan, actually they have Haman. I thought it was Hanan. Haman Clapper. Now, every year at the Jewish holiday Purim, which is a celebration of Queen Esther saving the Jewish people from annihilation from the Persian Empire, because this evil guy had convinced the emperor Xerxes. He has a different name in the Bible. That's who it is. The same Xerxes that faced off with Leonidas in Greece. That same Xerxes from the movie 300, where 300 Greeks held off the Persian army. Persians were not having a good time. But anyway, this gentleman was the advisor to Xerxes. And when Jewish people read the book of Esther, they get these and these little wooden spinny things. I think they're called gaffers, something like that. Anyway, anytime they read the book of Esther during Purim, which is, I believe, starts March 13th and ends on the 14th. So it's, sundown to sundown for a couple of days. And during those couple of days, what they do is they read the book of Esther out of a Torah book, and usually in Hebrew, but in America, in English. So this clapper doesn't clap very well. I guess I could put some force into it. But every time this gentleman, this arch-villain's name is mentioned during Purim, when they're reading Esther, they get out their noisemakers and they make noise. And they cover up his name being said, because he was a big, bad, evil guy that tried to kill all the Jews. And actually, the funny thing was, his people were killed off almost entirely by King Saul. God ordered King Saul to kill all of the people of his nation because he knew that they were just going to try to kill all the Jews someday. And King Saul did not listen, and he spared the king and queen. And the prophet Samuel came in the room, and because, the orders were to kill everything, down to every little lamb, oxen, their cattle, or even to be killed because of the presence of evil in their people. against Israelis. It was a blood feud, and they hated them. So King Saul spared the king and queen and had them captive, and the prophet Samuel came in and killed the king. And then somebody comes in and says, oh, the queen has escaped. Well, the queen was pregnant. So this gentleman was a descendant of that pregnant queen that had escaped. And he almost was successful in annihilating the Jewish people. If it had not been for Queen Esther, all the Jews would have been annihilated during the Persian Empire. Maybe a few would have survived, but they wouldn't have remained a nation, probably. But this guy was bent on revenge. And the thing is, I don't think Xerxes even realized that his sidekick here was that evil. And he tried to kill the queen. He tried to kill the queen's not uncle, but cousin that had raised her and was like a father to her. So this guy was really bad, and he was out for revenge for sure. So I might show you all other clappers that are used during Purim that, I don't know, this seems kind of, how do I say this? It seems kind of, to put his picture on here, or a depiction of him, seems kind of weird to me, because the whole idea of doing this, every time his name is mentioned, is to erase him from history, right? But by depicting him on here, it's creating, him living on in a way. There were traditions in Egypt, like when people changed power from one ruler to the next, and the previous ruler was hated, or was the current ruler didn't want, I don't know, public relations competition from the previous ruler, or ideal, or they worshipped a different god or whatever, they would take, and these were huge stone effigies of pharaohs and, women that were in power and all this, and they would just take and destroy the stones, and they would destroy the tombs, and they would destroy all the stuff in the pyramids, and usually recycle them to put other people in there. But they would chip out, of course, Egypt, everything's in stone, right? There's chiseled, there were scrolls too, probably, but anyway, they would chisel out their name and completely erase them from the historical record, which was stone. And but so the Jews, I don't know, they play like lip service to erasing this guy from history. But I think it's important that we remember this guy even today, because in a situation of self-defense, if somebody's coming in that door trying to kill me, I have a right to defend myself. So if somebody's out to destroy everyone in your nation, don't you have the right to defend your nation? I don't like that people have to die, but if they are out to murder you, out to kill you, thou shalt not kill, it's a different situation. This doesn't mean thou shalt not kill, does not mean you don't have the right to self-defense. I kept bringing this up to somebody that did not like the idea, but when the Roman soldiers came to get Jesus in the Garden of the Gethsemane, when he was arrested, Peter pulled out a sword, and it never hit me and he cut off the ear of somebody with the Roman party, and Jesus healed the ear and told Peter to put away his sword because he knew all this was meant to be and that they weren't going to fight. But the apostles carried swords because even Jesus realized you had a right to self-defense. And if he hadn't been meant to die on the cross, and he knew that, had known that beforehand, maybe he would have started an insurrection if he had been a regular man instead of the Son of God. But he knew he had to die on the cross for our sins. So he was like, Peter, put away your sword. Don't do that. It's not necessary. These events need to happen. So the disciples carried swords, and they would have defended themselves against, people trying to rob them. And also the disciples had in their mind that Jesus was going to conquer the Roman Empire. They didn't know that his kingdom was far superior to that and spiritual. They did not realize any of that the kingdom will not come until much later. The kingdom will come, but it's going to be a different kind of kingdom than the disciples imagined. But this guy, we're not going to erase him from history, even though he's long gone. And most certainly, I can't imagine. Well, actually, he was hung on gallows that he built to murder the queen's cousin. He built gallows to murder the queen's cousin, and he ended up hung on those same gallows that he built for himself. Wasn't a lot of time for confession at that point. There wasn't a lot of time for forgiveness, and he was so hateful and so hard-hardened against the Jewish people. He would never have prayed to their God. He would never have prayed to the Lord because he was that stubborn. So in a way, he erased himself. And so, the clatter during Purim is to erase his name, so his name's not heard when the book of Esther is read. But I always try to keep track of all the Jewish holidays to be close to God, because all these Jewish holidays were part of God's plan, and they're mirrored in the New Testament. And during Easter, and Passover, I'll get into that a little bit more. I did talk about the timelines somewhat before, but I think I'm going to repeat some of that this year, even though I'm not reading from the book of Exodus, so which outlines that. But it's also in Leviticus, and I'm reading Leviticus. So anyway, I am going to chatter on in more videos later. You all have a wonderful and blessed day.